Hello, yes, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV, coming live from the Wildwind workshop. If you're watching this later on, then you won't be able to interact live, so I won't be able to answer your questions on the video, but I will get back to you in the comments section. And also, I think that's about the size of it. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. And I have got, as always, many preloaded questions. So if you're not able to make the Q&A session live, but you have got some questions that you'd like answering or looking into, just leave them in the comments and I will answer them in next week's session if you can't happen to be here live, which is now. So hello, just having a look at some settings, live chat, very nice. So I think I'm just going to launch in with the first preloaded question, which this is from Scott. He says, it's not a catamaran sailing question as such, but we're going to go for it. He says, which editing system do you use to splice together your multi-camera clips for all of your videos? All right, yeah, the first one, I don't use GoPro Quick because I find that extremely clanky and not very, I think I could say good. What I do use is DaVinci Resolve, which is a free piece of software, but it's not like a free one which hasn't got many features. It's got so many features, and the way that I put the clips together, there's two ways you can do it on DaVinci Resolve. So if we've got 3 clips, you just import all 3 clips from the different cameras, and then you could just, there's a feature that just says synchronize clip, and then you say how you want to synchronize it, which I would usually do it with the audio, and then not all the time, but sometimes it does synchronize the clips nicely. The other way that I do it is kind of do it manually, where if you've got a clip like this, one like this, and one like this, so this is how the different video clips would appear in the timeline. I'll go through, I'll basically mute 2 of the clips so I can only hear 1, and then as I'm going through this clip, I'll listen for something that is quite obvious, like perhaps when I say, hello, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV. When I hear that, I'll put a marker on it, and then I'll mute that one so that I can, and then listen to this one, and then I'll put a marker on this one when I hear the same thing, and then I'll do the same for this one, and then I'll basically slide the clips so that they all line up, and that is how these multicam videos are being put together. So there you go, Scott. I hope that was what you're looking for, but I would recommend DaVinci Resolve to anybody because it's free, but it is a pro piece of software. At first it's quite intimidating, but then like with many things, it becomes easier the more that you use it. Okay, hello Damien, nice to have you on board. Thanks very much. I enjoy putting these videos out. For some reason that is the only comment that is being displayed. It's all right, maybe that's the only comment that we've had. So there we are. All right, I'm going to go on to the next preloaded question. And this one is from Trish. And oh my goodness, it's another question that isn't a catamaran sailing question, but here we go. Trish says, are zests okay to have stored on a boat trailer? I think my front roller was too far back. The outer edges of the roller had more contact with the front of the hull, and now there is some deformity on the bottom of the boat. Is excessive heat to blame? Do you have any tips on how to reform the plastic boat? You seem to know more about this boat than most. Well, I wouldn't say that I know more about the RS Zest than most. But firstly, with this trailer question, if you're using like a powerboat style trailer, am I even able to draw this? Which would be kind of this shape with a piece here with these rollers. I tell you what, this is going pretty well, if you ask me. And then maybe some more rollers here. These sort of trailers aren't ideal for sailing dinghies. The reason they're good for powerboats is because the powerboats have got the hull shape is quite a hard V kind of shape, kind of like that. Which means this bit of the hull is extremely hard, which means it sits nicely between the rollers and the rollers can't damage the hull. So that's the first thing. These sort of trailers are not ideal for sailing dinghies. What we'd want is a trailer which has got what we might call a bunk, which would be a piece that goes across like that and another piece here shaped to the hull, and those are very comfortable for the boat to sit on. So I would say that by sitting the boat on a powerboat style trailer, that might have caused some deformity to the bottom of the hull, unfortunately. So I would start looking for a specific dinghy trailer for this sort of boat. A trolley, a launching trolley for something like a Zest should only be, I reckon you'd be able to pick one up for $100, pounds, euros, whatever. And then you could then modify it so you could put, if you were taking the boat on the road, you could then put the launching trolley onto this road trolley somehow with a bit of, fixing it up. And then that means the boat shouldn't get damaged. Does heat make the plastic softer? I would say if it is extremely hot, like 40 degrees or something for a long period of time, and perhaps if you're not taking the bung out, then your hull could certainly become deformed. Always take the bung out of any boat if you are in hot weather, because the boats need to have air passing in and out of the hulls. If you don't have bungs, then take the hatches off to allow the air to get in the hulls, because that's really good, because what that will also do is completely dry out inside the hull as well as letting it breathe. So that would be the second thing. And then the third question, how can you reshape the plastic hull? Well, I have to admit, I don't really know. I've never actually done this myself. So you will have to seek help from a plastic boat builder, or perhaps get in touch with RS directly to see what they say on the subject, because I'm sure they've got some ideas on how to reshape the plastic hull. But thanks very much for the question, Trish. All right, we've got some people tuning in. Hello, Nick. Great to have you with us. Hello, Holly. That'd be Holly, who is in Oman. She was meant to be working on the team here this summer, but like many of the guys, she got done out of a job by Brexit. No politics on Joyrider TV. That's as close as we're getting. But hello, Holly. Stephen, Felixstowe Ferry Sailing Club Cat opened this weekend. Nice. Yeah, Felixstowe Ferry Sailing Club is my home sailing club back in the UK. So if you're going, Stephen, make sure you say hello to everyone from me on Joyrider TV. All right, Andy in Vancouver, Canada. Hello, welcome on board. Sorry, I think I need to calm down a bit. I'm sort of hitting the ground running a little bit here, because I literally came in from sailing on a Hobie 16, champagne conditions again, and just threw my gear on the floor, turned the computer on, and here I am. So I'll try to relax. All right, we've got Max in Rosenheim, who's just waiting for the next thunderstorm to come. Oh my. Hello, Max. Andy, best technique to get the Hobie 16 out of irons and drifting downwind? Okay, that's a good question that is actually about catamaran sailing. So let's have a look. So this will be the same for any boat, but when your boat is in irons, so firstly, let's just clarify what that means in irons. It means the same as if you've stalled. So if you just can't get your boat moving forwards, you would usually be pointing quite close to the wind. So maybe this sort of direction. So there's different things you can do according to the wind strength. But the first thing that you need to do if you can't get your boat going forwards is release the main sheet and the traveller. So get that bad boy completely released. Because as we've said before, the mainsail, when the boat isn't moving forwards, if there's any tension in the main sheet, that is going to pull the boat up into the wind, and it's going to stop you from being able to sail forwards. Okay, so we've loosened the main sheet. And then the next part is if it's windy or if it's not windy. First one, if it's windy, that might be enough to get your boat going. But if it's not, what you can do if you're sailing with a jib is you can either sheet the jib in or even pull the jib onto the other side of the boat, and then the wind is, as we can see here, is going to blow the jib, which is going to take the boat away from the wind and get you going forwards. Very nice. That'll get you going. But if the wind is too light for the jib to have that effect, or so if it's very light winds and you can't get your boat going, perhaps you've let your mainsail off, you've got the jib on the wrong side, or you've at least pulled the jib in tight, and you still can't get it going. This is what I learned on the Hobie 14, is then if you go and sit on the back of the boat on the leeward side, what that does is that will sink or put lower in the water this part of the hull. And what we know about this is if that part of the boat is lower than the rest of the boat, that is where the boat is going to pivot. So it's going to be like, so if it's pivoting there, it means that the boat has to bear away downwind or come away from the wind. So then that is a very good way of getting going. If you've tried both of those methods and neither are working, the next best way to get the boat going is to just crank the main sheet in and go for a tack, because by putting the main sheet in, that will drive you up into the tack, and then you should have a little bit of momentum there, and then just complete the tack as normal. The other thing you need to be aware of is, are you going backwards? Because if you are going backwards, then the rudders are going to be working in reverse. So just keep an eye on whether you're going forwards or backwards. If you're going backwards, then you need to reverse the rudders, which means put them this way, and then the boat will reverse around this way. And then you need to spot when you start going forwards again. When that happens, put the rudders straight and off you go. There we are. That's quite a full explanation of getting out irons. I hope that helps. Okay, Pedro, hello. Thanks for tuning in. Always nice to have South America on board. Hayden just went out with another boat for the first time, and we got to a point where we were out on the water and parking the boats up into the wind for lunch. His Hobie 18 parked up very nicely. Wicked. That sounds great. Yeah, the Hobie 18 is such a nice boat. It's originally designed for people who are a bit too heavy for the 16, but even if you are of a 16 weight, the 18 is still going to really tickle you. All right, Cebu. Can't remember Cebu's real name. All right, but yes, hello. And 32 days to go. Excellent. Hopefully by that point, it will have cooled down a little bit here. We're hitting some big temperatures. All right, Nick says, have you had a chance to wing foil yet? No, not yet. No, just been very busy. If I'm not out sailing catamarans, then I'm doing boat maintenance kind of things. If I'm not doing that, then I'm probably editing a video or making a video. And if I'm not doing that, I've got also a ton of administration sort of stuff that I have to do as well. So there's not a lot of free time at the moment, but hopefully as we go through into September, then the administration stuff will calm down a bit and I'll be able to get involved. All right, Stephen is going to the Cat Open at Felixstowe Ferry this weekend. Great. Have a great time there, Stephen. All right. Hayden says, however, my 14 turbo didn't like to stop for lunch. Anything else I should try and make it stay in irons without having to babysit it? Yeah, if you want to get your boat to sit in irons, this is for some reason, this seems to be a hot topic at the moment, how to go hove to on your boat. And there's been so many people asking for it. On the next morning when we've got a steady wind, I'm going to go out and make a video on how to park your boat and how to get going. So this could be applied to any situation where you need to stop and then start your boat. So whether it's like Hayden, who's having lunch, or perhaps like what happened to me the other day where I lost my camera, had to stop the boat to have a good look around quite a few times, or perhaps you're on the race start line and you're stopping and starting before the start of a race. We're going to be taking a look at that in an upcoming video. But yeah, similar to what we're talking about here, but when you want to stop the boat, what we're going to do, we're going to be at a similar angle like this. And you've got a 14 turbo, which means you should have a jib there. So we're going to pull the jib in on the wrong side. And that, all right, I'll draw the effects in afterwards. We're going to put the rudders across this way. So this is the only kind of babysitting, as you put it, you'll have to do, is you'll just have to make sure the rudders stay across. And then the mainsail kind of depends on the wind strength and what kind of angle you want the boat to sit at. But what I would do is put the traveller most of the way out, have the mainsail reasonably loose, take the downhaul off as well so the sail doesn't flog, and then the boat sit like that very nicely for a long time. Of course, it is going to drift. It will gradually kind of drift in this direction, maybe a little bit more like this. And the way that this works is the jib is pulling the front of the boat that way. The rudders are putting the front of the boat that way. And then the mainsail is just kind of equalizing. So every time the front of the boat tries to get away from the wind, the rudders put it straight back into the wind. So that is how you would want to park your boat. All right, moving on. Greg Greg in Adelaide, Australia. Must be pretty late there. So good evening, Greg. Thanks for tuning in. We have Kai tuning in as well in Berlin. Hello, Kai. Nice to have you with us. It'll be the Show Us Your Cat special, not this weekend, but the next episode will be the special about Kai's daughter, Emily, who's just been smashing it in the F18 Worlds. So if you've got any more content for that, Kai, then... Sebu's real name is Thomas. Of course it is. Sorry about that. I'm not very good with names at the best of times, to be honest. All right, we've got the sun. All right, the sun. So I was on my catamaran and I hit a wave and pitchpoled. How do I prevent that other than moving back on the boat? Okay, so I think we might have talked about this before, avoiding the pitchpole. But yeah, so the first one is obvious. Get as far back on the boat as possible. And then, I don't know what I'm going to draw actually. And then, so the next thing is what we're going to do with the mainsail. So to avoid the pitchpole, you want to make sure that you can have the main sheet fairly tight, which means you need to let the traveller out. So if you've got the traveller, say, halfway out, and every time you sheet the mainsail in, you see the bows are going down, then that means you need to let the traveller out more. And you could even get to the stage where you've got the traveller out all the way because it's so windy. So if you've got the traveller out all the way, and then every time you sheet in, the bows are going down, then that means it's very windy. And you just have to sail with the main sheet loose. Or, unfortunately, the best way to avoid the pitchpole and reduce the pressure in the rig is by sailing faster. So that requires time on the water, experience that you'll get from that time on the water. And what that will do is give you more confidence to push the boat harder, to go faster, and that is going to reduce the risk of the pitchpole. So as well as having the main sheet and traveller, well, the traveller loose, but you're still trying to have some main sheet tension on, because if you've got very little tension in the main sheet, it means you've got very little control over the mainsail, and it's almost like it's organic. It's just moving as the pressure says, like this. Whereas if you've got the main sheet tight, it means you're in control. Then the jib, the same thing. If you've got jib travellers, set the jib travellers out, and then have the jib off a little bit. Because when it's windy, it's not a bad thing to have the front part of the jib actually flapping a little bit to help avoid the pitchpole. So there's a few things you can do as well as getting your weight right to the back of the boat. But your best defense against the pitchpole is sailing faster. It reduces the pressure. I hope that helps to some degree there, the sun. All right, Greg says, any chance you will be doing a video on the water racing another cat again? Continuing, really enjoyed watching the competition, how you think of tactics. Yeah, and Greg continues, it's currently 12:30 a.m. in Adelaide. All right, yeah, so yes, I've got one that I'm thinking of doing, which is going to be, I'm going to sail a Hobie Tiger, and I'm going to sail against, I don't know who it's going to be, but somebody else sailing the C2, and I'm going to see if I can keep up with the C2. That's the current one on the list, which I'm thinking about. I think it'd be very interesting. And then if I am able to keep up with the C2 around the course, then maybe we'll take the boats onto a sort of more of a drag racing kind of reaching course as well. And then once we've done that, if I am able to keep up, then we'll swap boats and see what the difference is. I think that would be fun. and interesting. So there we go. Hello, Stefan in Munich. Thanks for tuning in. Stefan with, what is it? I question, you answer. Okay, Mart in the Netherlands. Nice to have you with us. A lot of people from Holland here this week, incidentally. Gary in Iowa. Thanks for tuning in, Gary. All right, I've got a bit who says, love the channel. Thank you very much. We ran into a reef, ouch, with a wildcat and bent the tip of the daggerboard 15 centimeters or so. Any tips on fixes and how bad will it actually affect the performance of the boat? Yeah, ow, that is pretty nasty. The only thing that I can think that you might be able to do to straighten the daggerboard out is this is what when we thought that we had a bent tiger daggerboard, this is what I tried to do. So I took the daggerboard and had it on its side like this, and then let's say the center of the bend was here, the deepest part of the bend was here. So we had it so that the bend in the daggerboard was up like that, and then had it supported so that the bend is roughly halfway between the supports. So the supports are going to be blue. Had it between two supports like this, and then to try to get rid of the bend, what I did is I put a strap around this part of the daggerboard where the bend is deepest, with a load of weight on the strap, so that that's pulling down, and then just left it like that for a week and a half to see if that pulled the bend out at all. And it did have some effect, but to be honest, that is the only way that I can see about taking a bend out of a daggerboard or a rudder blade. I think a bit of heat might soften it a little bit as well, which might help, but that's all I've got, I'm afraid, Bit. How will it affect the performance of the boat? Well, I think what's going to happen is with the bent daggerboard, it's not going to grip as much, so the boat is going to slide sideways more. So if you're on a race course, it's really going to affect the performance against other boats. But if you're just like free sailing on your Wildcat and you're not racing against other boats, I think the first thing to do is to try it, see how it feels. And if the boat still feels all right, then maybe don't worry too much if you're not racing. All right, Greg says that video would be really interesting. See how fast they both are. Yeah, I think so. All right, then we've got Lee. Hello, Lee. I'm in Georgia, USA. Love your education and training videos. Thanks, Lee. I appreciate it. Just staying hydrated. I think it's important. All right, I'm going to go for the next preloaded question. Okay, so I've got, I think it'd be Bakes Data, who says, what do you think about the anti-pitch pole device? I sail in Spain with a restored Hobie 14 turbo, almost always in choppy conditions. All right, the pitch pole, anti-pitch pole device. All right, if you haven't seen one of these, then that's okay. So if we do a top view of your hull, so that's the bow of your boat. Sorry, not a very good picture, but you get the idea. And the the bit where the bridle wire attaches the bow tang would be just here, like that, bridle wire going that way. So I think we know where we are with the picture of the boat. So the anti-pitch pole device, these were designed, I believe, for the Hobie 16, probably the Hobie 14 and the Hobie 18. Let's do a side view as well while we're at it. And there's the same bridle wire going off like that. So this anti-pitch pole device, what it is, it's like a plate that mounts at the front of the boat that kind of does this sort of thing. So this is the anti-pitch pole device that fits like that. It's only thin, so it would go kind of like this. And what the idea is it's going to add resistance if the bow is being pushed under the water, then this plate is going to hit the water first and stop the bow from going under the water. So I think they probably do work to a certain degree in certain conditions, but I personally, I tell you what, I would put one on a boat to because it would make a very interesting video if I put on an anti-pitch pole device and then went out deliberately trying to pitch pole the boat and see how well it works. I think that would be extremely interesting and everybody would absolutely love it. So I think I might get in touch with Murray's in the USA and see if they'll send me a pair, because I think it's going to be a very good video. Great idea. Thanks for that, everybody. But would I actually put one on a boat because I think it's going to work? At this time, I would say no. I wouldn't put one on. I would use the technique that I spoke about just before, about how to avoid the pitch pole rather than fitting a bit of plastic to the front of the boat. Because if that does go under the water, then there's very little chance that it's going to pop back out, which can happen sometimes. So that's a no to the pitch pole device, but keep your eyes open for the does the anti-pitch pole plate video work. Yeah, Kai says it's a nice diving tool. There we go. All right, so there we are. That is what I think about the anti-pitch pole device. All right, so continuing, we've got Kurosh in Dubai. Kurosh always has good questions, very interesting questions. Oh, he says, I'm wondering, how are boats weighed? I know that boats are weighed before official races to check compliance against weight restrictions, but can't imagine how it's done. Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually, the device that they've got. So if we're looking from above, do we need to look from above? No, not necessarily. Let's look from the side. So here's one of the hulls of the boat. What you have to do when you weigh in is you have to take the mast down a lot of the time as well, which is a bit of a pain if you've just spent ages putting it up, but it's all part of the game. And then you put all the sailing gear on the boat as well, so your sails, all of that lot. Of course, we have the rudders on the boat as well, everything that's part of the boat. And then each class of boat does have a minimum weight limit. So, for example, in the Tornado, that would be 150 kilos. I think maybe it's 156 kilos. I'm sure someone will correct me. In the Formula 18, it's 180 kilograms. And then what they have for weighing your boat is they have some special scales. Basically, they look a bit like bathroom scales, and one of them sits under each corner of the boat like this. Okay, so you have 4 of these things that sit under the boat, but you'll say, oh, but they'll only show a quarter of the weight or something. Well, this is where the science comes in. These scales are connected by scientific cables, which means that somehow they work out the weight of the boat by that. So they're connected that way, and they'll be connected, like if we go 3D, there's the other hull, and then there's the other one. So they're connected front and back and side to side like that. And that's how it finds out how heavy the boat is. All right, so Kai and Fred in agreement that the anti-pitchpole device is good for making the boat pitchpole harder and deeper. There we go. Okay, I think at this stage, I'm just going to insert an ad break for those of you who are watching later. And welcome back. All right. Oh, we've got Ollie Smith on board. Hi, Ollie. How you doing?
Good, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. Yeah, he's in the next room. All right. Okay. So next question. This comes from Clive. Clive says, I have some questions about sailing in light winds on a tight rigged boat. He says, I'm on an FX1. All right, what settings basically saying what settings do we use? How do you reduce drag? And he's had terrible trouble keeping up with the darts. Poor Clive. Yeah, so the FX1 should be quicker than the Dart 18s, that's for sure. So things that you can do in light winds that are going to help. When Clive says tight rigged boats, that is boats like the FX1, the Formula 18, the Tornado, those sort of boats. So this perhaps wouldn't be quite as accurate for the Hobie 16 or the Dart 18. So what would we look at first? Course. Okay, most important is always the course. So when the wind is super light, it's important not to try to point too close to the wind. Wind's still coming from here. So there's always going to be a specific angle depending on the type of boat that you're sailing, which is going to give us the optimal VMG, velocity made good. It's going to get us there quickest. So if we try to sail too close to the wind, which in a race is going to be very tempting, we're not going to go as quickly through the water, which means the foils, the daggerboards and the rudders aren't going to work as efficiently. And although we may be pointing closer, so if we start off back here, we may be pointing closer to the wind, which might make you think, okay, if we're going to a buoy over here, you know, that looks pretty good, doesn't it? But what's going to happen if we're not sailing as quickly? Like even in light winds, there is a difference in boat speed that we can gain just by coming off the wind a few degrees. So by the time we get up here, we're going to have drifted like down here because the foils aren't working as efficiently. This works in all wind strengths if you're trying to really point high and you're sacrificing a lot of boat speed for sailing closer to the wind, then you're going to drift a lot more. So first one, don't try to point too close to the wind. This is very easy to define if you're sailing a boat which has a jib. But when you're sailing a boat which doesn't have a jib, you've really got to feel it and just keep watching the wind indicators at the front, and you will learn from your boat what angle is optimal. If we're sailing a boat which has a jib, in light winds, as we've explained before, we've got the telltales, and we want the telltales on both sides of the sail flying straight back. If the windward telltale starts fluttering a bit, that means we're going too close to the wind, so we need to bear off a little bit to keep the boat sailing at its most optimal for the conditions. Also, if we've got a jib, we don't want it to be absolutely jammed in tight. We want it just eased a little bit, because that will put a little bit more shape into the sail. Okay, next thing. Clive asked about the daggerboards. Daggerboards all the way down. You don't need to be overly scientific about the daggerboards. Just put them all the way down, and that is going to be the best. Then downhaul, we want to be putting on just a small amount of downhaul, just to take the majority of the creases out of the mainsail. Then mast rotation. How can I draw this? Here is the boat. Here is the leeward shroud. We want the mast rotation so that it's pointing directly at the leeward shroud on the boat. That is going to be optimal for those conditions. And then the main sheet and the traveller, this is another place where we can really lose boat speed. On a boat, a tight rigged boat is we want to make sure the traveller is in the middle on this type of boat at all times on the upwind course. If it's not in the middle, we're going to lose our ability to point close to the wind. So traveller in the middle, and then with the main sheet, most important is that we don't pull it in too tight. You should have on your mainsail is an accurate drawing of a mainsail, and of course we've got the battens on the mainsail. If you haven't got any, you should definitely fit some leech telltales. 3 or 4 in, not in this completely top panel because that's pointing the wrong way, but in the next panels down, halfway between the battens is usually the best spot. And then what these telltales are telling you, that the sail at that position is not in too tight. So as you sheet the sail in theory, the lowest down one should disappear first, because it's more directly linked to the main sheet. So as you pull the main sheet in, you'll see that bottom one disappear. If you sheet it in more, the next one would disappear. Sheet it in more, the top one would disappear. If they're not going in that order, maybe you need some little tweaks with your batten tension to make sure that they do go in order. It's quite difficult to actually get that to happen. And then the amount of main sheet that you want to have in is so that the bottom one, which would be no more than halfway down from the top of the sail, you want to make sure that that bottom one is flying about half of the time, and then that shows that you've got the correct amount of main sheet tension. And then the last one is your position on the boat. Where are you going to sit? So in the light winds, what we have especially is what we have to really pay attention to is that we're not dragging the back of the boat. That's going to slow us down a lot. Any type of boat that you're sailing, don't just be sucked to the back of the boat all the time. That is the thing that's going to slow you down the most in the lighter conditions, as well as everything else, of course. So the spot where you want to be if you're sailing solo would be somewhere around the front beam, just behind it perhaps. So about here on the boat, that would be a good spot to sit on the upwind leg. Of course, I've just drawn it so we're sitting on the leeward side. Yeah, we actually want to be sitting on the windward side of the boat, making sure that you have got good steering. But those are the measures that I would look at for getting a bit more out of your boat. But very important, don't try to point too high. Don't sheet your mainsail in too much, and get forwards on the boat to reduce the drag. Okay. All right. Hi, Kurosh. Yeah, you're very welcome. Greg says, when are the next Tornado Championships and will you be entering? Yeah, the next Tornado Championships are scheduled for the end of September this year, and that is on the other side of Greece. So I am looking at going to that event, but they have released a notice of race, which means that it is now possible to enter, but I don't know if this is very wrong of me or not, but I'm reluctant to enter until pretty close to the date of the event, because if the event gets cancelled, they've put in the sailing instructions that entry fees are non-refundable, and the entry fee for the Tornado Worlds is €450. That seems juicy. So maybe another crowdfunding to pay the entry fee for the Tornado Worlds. Is that all right to do that, by the way? Put it in the comments what you think. Is it all right to ask the global Total Joyrider community to effectively sponsor me to go to the Worlds? Probably need to raise about €2,000 in total to cover everything. Yeah, I'd be interested to know your opinion on that. But yeah, so that is the Worlds this year. But I'm not completely convinced that it is going to go ahead because of the plague, which is affecting things. All right, let's edit. Hello. Me and my dad are having trouble tacking the Hobie 16. When we are initiating the tack, the boat stops as soon as we try to get through the wind. Okay. Yeah, so the fundamentals of tacking, but actually, before we go into the fundamentals, I did hear from one of the guys on Patreon that he followed the instructions with the mast setup. He'd been sailing with his mast very straight up on the boat. So if that's the boat, very straight up like that. And he was having real trouble tacking. And then when applying the technique, well, what I'm talking about in the rig tuning videos of having a bit more mast rake on. So he put the mast a bit further back. He said the difference it's made to his boat is like night and day. It's like his boat is now tacking like an absolute demon, whereas before he was stalling a lot of the time. So do have a look at your rig setting as well. But the fundamentals of tacking, it's all very linked. Tacking, parking the boat, or getting stuck in irons. A lot of it comes down to the main sheet. So fundamentals of tacking, maybe we've been through this before. wouldn't like to say. First thing, we're going to sail the boat as close to the wind as possible. So if we're doing, like going back a few questions ago, where we were talking about getting more performance out of your boat in lighter winds, and we weren't pointing the boat as close to the wind as possible, what I would suggest is when you're sailing along, don't try to point as close to the wind as possible if it's really light winds. But when you want to go for a tack, just before you go for the tack, head up so you are sailing as close to the wind as possible, because that's going to give you a smaller angle to turn the boat through. All right. So as well as heading up, before we go into the tack, we're going to tighten up the main sheet as much as we can. That means really cranking it in until we can't crank it in anymore. If it's windy and you're doing this, then, and the hull lifts, you can bring the boat closer to the wind to bring the hull down, and that will mean we've got an even smaller angle that we have to turn the boat through. And then what we'll do next is, before we initiate the turn, we'll take the mainsail, said it again, the mainsail out of the main sheet, out of the cleat, and we'll hold it so it's in the same position, because that's going to make it easier to release. And then we'll initiate the turn. And as soon as we're head to wind, the wind's going to come in the other side of the jib. So leave the jib there. And then at that moment, that is when to let the mainsail off and to go across the boat. Letting the mainsail off is very important indeed. If you're not doing that, then you're going to stall your tack. So do that. You won't stall your tack. And then the jib will then help to pull the nose of the boat round. And as soon as you can, get across the boat, look forwards, and don't pull the mainsail in again till the boat is moving forwards. There we go. There are some fundamentals of tacking which should hopefully help there. There we go. All right, we're up to 50 minutes now. So, yeah, Fred says letting the main sheet out was the key for me. I think one popular belief with tacking is you need to be sailing fast going into the tack. That is not true. You need to be sailing close to the wind, and you need to have the main sheet really tight before you go into the tack, and then loosen it when you head to wind. There we go. All right. So there we go. Let's edit. I hope that helps. Hello, Stephen at Grapham. Steve, sorry. Nice to have you on board. Currently sitting, I think, inside the top 5 on the speed stick on the Inter 20. Nice. All right, let's edit. Says, I found a way to do it, but doesn't feel right. I usually take over the jib very late. Yeah, that's right. So that the boat will drift around the right way, but it takes a lot of time. Yeah, maybe what we should do in a video is to do some tacks on different types of boat and see what a good target time is from entering the tack to getting the boat going again on the new side. I think that's a good idea. We'll do it with the GPS and the stopwatch. See how long it takes. We do that perhaps on the Hobie 14, the 16. I will do it on the 15 as well. Why not? And then on the Tiger as well, and the FX1. Interesting. All right. Toot in Texas. Howdy. Nice to have you on board. Toot says, absolutely ask for support. Thanks very much. I think I will. Greg says, wow, that's 725 Aussie dollars. That's mental. Mental emoji. Yes, I think so too. All right. Then we've got Matthew. Hello, Matthew. Could you confirm how loose would you expect the leeward shroud to be on a Hobie 16? Kind of depends on the wind strength. But how can I demonstrate the looseness? I would expect the leeward shroud, if you were to go to the leeward side of the boat and give it a wiggle, to be able to move it about this much, totally loose, like that. There we go. All right, no further questions, please. I've still got some preloaded ones to go through, and we're up to 55 minutes now. So thanks very much for your questions. But here we are. Kurosh, I heard that trimming the mainsail and jib changes the center of effort. How does position of center of effort affect boat power? Oh my word, Kurosh with a juicy one. All right, so if we've got, let's just say we're talking about the mainsail. The center of effort is the deepest part of the sail. So let's draw 3 different versions. It's not very good. All right, let's try to make that a bit clearer. That's good. All right, so what we're trying to do with the center of effort in the sails, or the rig even, is to have the center of effort quite far forwards. Because if we think about the way that the boat is being pulled, it's going to be perpendicular to the center of effort. So in this one, we're going to be pulled that way. So if this, all right, I'm sorry, I should draw the boat in. I think that's going to help to clarify a bit here. So the boat is going that way. This is the front. So the center of effort is going to pull directly perpendicular. So if it's too far back, all that power in the sail is going to do is it's going to try to get the boat flying a hull, and it's not really going to make the boat go any faster. So if we've got a sail shape like that, the thing we can do most to control the center of effort is pull the downhaul more, because what it's also doing with the downhaul, without much downhaul on, the center of effort, if you've got main sheet on and no downhaul, is going to be kind of like in this kind of zone here. So it's quite high up, it's quite far back. So all that is going to do is make the boat want to fly the hull. Or if we're reaching, it's going to, with that pull there, it's going to try to drive the bows down. So what we do is we pull the downhaul on, and that brings the center of effort down and forwards, which moves towards here, and then eventually towards here, where we pull a lot of downhaul on. So this one better, this one ideal. So there we go. We are into the quicker answers sort of section of the session now. So there we go. All right, I'm going to go for the next preloaded question. Still got a few here. In fact, I'm going to go through the preloaded questions before I go back to the live questions. All right, this is from Miguel, who says, I'm wondering in which hole do I put the front part of the jib that goes below the forestay? Okay, yeah, the tack of the jib. I don't know exactly which hole to put it in from the bottom, when to put it in the higher ones or the lower ones. Yeah, much with this center of effort stuff that we're talking about, with the jib as well, we want to put the jib as low as possible, because the higher up we put the jib, the more that the jib is going to just try to make the hull lift or drive the bows down if we're going off the wind. So we're trying to put it as low as possible. But there does come a time when it would be too low. So if we've got the jib here, so we want to put it as low as possible, but then at the same time, we want to make sure that we're getting, when we sheet in the jib, we're getting an even pull on the foot and the leech. So on the bottom edge and the back edge. That's what we're looking for with the sheet. If we put the jib too low down, we're not going to be able to get any tension in the leech because it's going to start pulling more this way. So that's just what we've got to be aware of. As it gets windier, moving the jib lower down is going to help because we want to have less tension in the leech so that we naturally spill some wind out of the leech of the sail. So there is a bit of experimentation to do because it will also depend a bit on the mast rake of the boat, how low down we can put the jib. So there we go. All right, next one. Marco, hello. He says, I'm pretty new to the sailing world. My Hobie 14 always turns into the wind when I leave the stick, even to keep in a straight course direction. It's really all right. Okay, yeah. So Marco's Hobie 14 is always heading up into the wind, and what I'm guessing here is the problem is some of it to some degree might come to the main sheet tension. If you've got too much main sheet on, as we've said already, the main sheet and the mainsail is generally pulling the boat up into the wind. So if you let the mainsail off, the boat shouldn't want to go upwind quite as much. But what I reckon this is it's a rudders thing. So if we've got the boat, this boat's going the other way to normal, and it's got a lot of banana to it. All right. This is a terrible drawing. I'm very sorry about that. I'm just rushing now because of the time. All right. So if the rudders are further back like this, that is going to make the steering very heavy, which means that the effect of the rig is going to be amplified through the rudders, which means the boat is really going to want to head up into the wind all of the time. So what we're looking for with the rudders, so the black one is what we're not looking for, is the rudders to be straight down and tucked under the boat as much as possible. That's going to make the steering as light as it can possibly be, and it will reduce that effect of the boat trying to turn up into the wind. All right. Okay, just checking in on the live. We've got Jeff, who says, how do you know when a sail is getting too old? Okay, good question. If it is a Dacron or woven sail, like a Hobie 16 sail, we've got a bit of a thing at the moment with some of our sails. We know they're getting too old because every time somebody capsizes and falls into the sail, it's getting a big tear in it. That's because the sailcloth has lost its strength. And that is definitely a sail that you could say too old, or perhaps you could say it's been exposed to too much salt water and UV. If you're sailing with a laminated sail, like a mylar sail or something similar, then when they get too old, what will start happening is it will start delaminating, which means it will start going a bit flaky, definitely too old. If you're racing, then there's a whole different category on what is too old with a racing sail, but we won't go into that just now. Okay. All right. Stefan is chatting with Litz Edits. Thank you, Stefan. Okay, Brian, hello in Southern California. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Litz Edit says, I was away while you were answering. Thanks for your help. I'm actually a Swedish sailor, so some of the terms aren't familiar, but I think I understand most of them. Okay, that's good to know. Thanks. I hope that this is all proving to be very useful. All right, so we've got Alberto, who is asking about how to work the mast rotation. Okay, so on an F-18 style boat, we have got control of the rotation of the mast. And for this, I'm actually going to use this. This is now our mast. Let's draw the boat on. All right. So what we're doing with the mast rotation is we're making the mast become part of our active sail area. And so we're getting a bit more sail area out of the mast. Also, the mast is working to help to control where the center of effort is. And the third thing is the mast is affecting the tension in the leech of the mainsail. So to get the good airflow, what we want to do is generally, is that the better way to do it, or is it this way? Let's go this way. The mast, we want to have pointing towards the leeward shroud. I know this sounds very kind of generic and probably isn't right for all boats, but from my years of research and development, this is what I found to be the most effective. The reasons why this is most effective is because when we've got the mast this far round, if we draw the sail coming off the mast, we get a really nice clean flow around the back of the mast and the sail. So that is really helpful. It means that as the wind, the airflow comes down here, it's going to be a really, really good, smooth, laminar airflow over the back of the sail. Very important. Oh, and Alex is saying, can I use mast rotation to control, to depower in strong winds? So I'm going to talk about how I do it, and then I'm going to talk about how other people do it. So how I do it is I sail with the mast rotation in that position all of the time, because for me, this just, all the logic points towards this is the best position, because the next one, the mast directs the battens. So that means the more we have the mast round like this, if I draw the sail in again, it's pushing the curve into the front part of the battens, which, like we were saying earlier about the center of effort, that is going to bring the center of effort further forwards by having the mast round more, which means we're going to be getting driven forwards more. But we're not going to have it round this much, because then we're going to lose this initial effect. So there is a balance that we're looking at. So pointing at the shroud, still winning. All right. So what other people, yeah, this is basically where I put it. The other reason why I'd put the mast here is because the mast bends much more easily this way than it does this way, which means with it rotated more, we can bend the mast more, which means we can sheet the mainsail in more. When we sheet the mainsail in a lot, combined with a lot of downhaul, this is going to give us a very flat sail, which is going to be tremendously efficient sailing upwind in the strong conditions, or in fact, on any course in the strong conditions. So for that reason, I'm keeping the mast here. Now, I have tried sailing the other way, which is to pull the mast in as it gets windier. And to be honest, I really didn't like the way that it felt. So what the instructions are from Danny and Costas, these guys are the many times Tornado world champions. They've won the F8. I think they came second in the F18 Worlds. Maybe they did win that. They've got Olympic silver. So they've got a list of qualifications that says we should listen. Is they'll keep the mast there, really cranking on the downhaul. And then once they get to a point where the downhaul is on full, with the mast in this position, if they're still overpowered, they're then going to let the downhaul off, bring the mast so it's pointing at the corner there at the back, and then starting again the process with the downhaul. Now, what this will do is it will make the whole rig a lot flatter. But for me, the reasons I don't like it is because if you haven't got, well, if the sail isn't perfectly flat, the center of effort is going to be much further back. So we're going to get that perpendicular pull. And also it's going to be more difficult to sheet the mainsail in because of this mast bending phenomena. Okay, so there we go. That is what we're talking about with the mast rotation. I hope that was of some help. What we can also do is on the downwind, we can let the mast rotation off completely. But again, I wouldn't, that's not something that I would do. Maybe I should stick to just teaching what I would do and not what other people have said they'll do. But I think a bit of, comparison is quite nice at times. All right, next preloaded question. Got 3 more. This is from Willis, who says, this is more of a boat maintenance question. Trampoline issues are afoot on Willis's boat. He says, my trampoline is pulling out on the sides, but otherwise it seems to be in good shape. It's a 2-piece trampoline, not a 3-piece. And he's having loads of trouble getting it out even after getting it wet. Okay. And he says, should I repair the old one or make a new one? Another question is, should I change to a 3-piece type trampoline? And is it a good idea to use smaller grommets, which I would call eyelets? All right. So if you don't want to replace your trampoline and it's pulling out at the sides, what this might mean is over time, either the tracks that the trampoline feeds into or the ropes that run along the sides of the trampoline are going to have gone out of shape. So a fix for this would be to take it to the sailmaker and get him to put some new bolt ropes in the sides of the trampoline. And it'll be a fairly juicy job for the sailmaker, but not as juicy as making a new one. So that would be the first consideration. If the tracks at the side of the boat, which is unlikely to happen with a Hobie 16, but with something like a Dart 18, much more likely, because the tracks on a Dart 18 are very soft. whereas on a Hobie 16, they're much, much harder. All right, so that would be number one. Get the bolt ropes in the sides changed. Willis also said he's acquired a 12-foot trampoline, like an actual trampoline for bouncing on. Could he get a boat trampoline made out of that? I would say no, because that sort of trampoline material is way too stretchy, so you won't get the stiffness with that sort of material. So let's just say no to that. Should I put in smaller grommets, meaning the little lacing eyelets? I think yes. I think there's no reason why the grommets need to be particularly big. Smaller ones are going to mean you're going to be able to get it tighter, and it's just going to, I think it's just going to be a bit nicer. And Willis's last question is, should I upgrade to a 3-piece trampoline? I think if your trampoline is looking a bit tired, but it doesn't sound like it is, then one of the biggest facelifts you can give your boat is getting a new trampoline for it. So it is worth considering. And if you were going to change it, then a 3-piece trampoline, you are going to be able to get tighter. So that is going to be a positive step forwards. Okay, so I hope that helps a bit there, Willis, with your trampoline questions. All right, next one, we've got Tom, who says, is 60 kilograms enough to sail an FX1? And how much wind or weight is needed to right it after a capsize? Okay, good questions. I'd say 60 kilos is enough to sail an FX1. Oh, thanks, Willis. Didn't know you were here, but I'm glad I nailed it. Yeah, an FX1 with 60 kilos, you'll probably be all right up to about 18 knots of wind. After that, you are going to find it pretty juicy because you're going to be a bit light for that. But that's not to say don't go for it. Just like we said, crank the downhaul on as much as you can. If you're still overpowered, even though you're not going to point as high, then start to drop the traveller out. Bring the dagger boards up a bit more on all points of sail. Lifting them a bit higher is going to take some power out of the boat and allow it to slip more sideways. So there's some depowering options. Then for righting the capsize, in the testing that we did with the bag, what we found was with, again, it's 120 kilograms, which is the same as for the Hobie 16. That is enough weight to bring the boat upright in 0 wind. So it's unlikely that you'll capsize in 0 wind. So we could say that in wind where it is windy enough to capsize, which would be like 10 knots or something, if you really got caught sleeping on the boat and the wind came in, you'd probably need about 100 kilos to right the boat, which means getting a bag, a capsize righting bag, is definitely a good option. I'm a much bigger fan of the bag than the righting frame or the righting pole, because the righting pole or frame puts a lot more weight on the boat, a lot more stuff flapping around underneath the boat, whereas the bag can be quite compact. It will just fit maybe alongside your boom or on the trampoline, easy. Check out the video on the bag if you haven't seen it. All right, I'm just going to do the last preloaded question, and then I'll just go through the rest of the comments here in the live. So last one is from CT. CT says, how would you suggest mooring the boat for long seasonal storage? Is it safe to leave the boat moored for long periods of time? Is it okay to leave the sails up? I would say ideally to all of those questions, unfortunately, the answer is no. Here at Wildwind, we put the boats on moorings just during the day. So the boat will sit on the mooring in the morning when there's zero wind until people come to use the boat. So that would be for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And then at lunchtime, maybe for an hour and a half. And then in the afternoon, maybe the boat might sit on the mooring for another hour or so. So a total of no more than 3 hours in the day. But I just wouldn't feel too comfortable leaving the boat on a mooring for longer periods of time, because firstly, you've got the problem with things growing on the hulls. That is going to slow you down. It's going to make your boat look horrible, and it might actually cause some damage to the fiberglass. So that's a reason why not. But if, let's say, if you were going somewhere to sail for a week and there wasn't a very nice beach or facility to launch the boat, then to leave the boat on the water for a week, that is probably the longest period that I would want to leave one on the water, definitely. Then could you leave the sails up during the day? If the boat is under some sort of loose supervision, I'd say yes, it's fine. Just leave them with the sheets loose and the downhaul released. But I would never leave a boat on a mooring overnight with the sails up. So there you go. Thanks very much for your question, CT. I hope that helps. All right, so just going to, no further questions, please, by the way. All right, David C. Hello from France. Hello. Just wondering, what are your GoPro camera gear you shoot your videos? Yeah, okay, so I like these sort of questions because they're very matter of fact, because it's just facts and very easy. So on the head, I'm generally using the Hero 7. On anywhere that I think stabilization is going to help. So if you saw the one where I was doing the hand movements video, very nice. Check it out if you haven't seen it. I was using the Hero 8 on the tiller extension cam. But if I'm having a camera on the bridle wires, I'd use the 8 because of the stabilization, just makes it look really nice. And then I also use a GoPro Session, which is the little square one. I put that one where I think it's in a little bit more of a dangerous, perhaps, position where it's going to get really wet, because that little fella is really solid and quite bulletproof. There we go. All right. Peter, hi. I used to sail when I was a youth, now 28 and wanting to get back into it. Luckily, I live in Plymouth in the UK. Want to purchase a Hobie 16, but I feel I need a few lessons anywhere you can recommend. Thanks. Okay, there used to be a place in Plymouth called, I think it was called Spinnakers. Is that what it was called? But there used to be a sailing school there in Plymouth, which would be as good as any, I'd say. But one of the best, in fact, this is where you need to go, is you need to go to Falmouth in Cornwall, which may be a bit of a drive, but maybe not too far, where there is Wind Sport International. I used to work for Wind Sport before they were called Wind Sport. But they have to be one of the top places in the UK for any catamaran sailing instruction. Wind Sport. Let's write it down. Wind Sport. They do most of their training on, has that come backwards for you guys as well? Weird. Most of their training on Dart 18s, and I think, I haven't looked at the website for quite some time, but yes, that's who I would recommend. Daniel, hello in Poland. Last time on live, I asked you about Prindle 16s. Is it a good choice for beginners? You said it's not easy cat, but yes, it's a good choice. Yes. Yes, it's a very good choice. In my opinion, first sailing on catamaran was something beautiful. Yes, I love it, but it's fast and I have to train many hours to sail it perfect. Excellent. Glad to hear that you're having a good time there, Daniel. All right, Toot says, go glow slow. Tramps are great. I've bought 3. There you go. All right, then we've got Meltiades, who says, hello, Joe. I know what apps are you using when you are sailing. What I mean is the wind speed and direction, which is on displays. Okay, yeah, yeah, I don't have a wind speed and direction thing in the videos as far as I can recall, but the ones that are showing, oh no, okay, yeah, what those gauges are showing in the videos isn't the wind speed, that is the boat speed. Yeah, so sorry, I think you've got the wrong end of the stick there. And those gauges I'm taking from the GoPro. The GoPro has an inbuilt GPS. And then afterwards, I'm using a piece of software called Telemetry Overlay, which you can overlay many things, but I just overlay the boat speed because that is what people are interested in. There we go. Okay, so we've been going for an hour and a half now. I think on that note, it's time for me to say goodbye. I think this has been enough for today. I hope that has been helpful, perhaps entertaining and informative. Thanks very much for tuning in, everybody who's joined me live. It makes me feel slightly less lonely. And thanks to everybody who's been supporting the channel on Patreon. I can't thank you guys enough. It's really nice of you to keep chucking a bit of cash in to help me with things such as buying a new camera when I almost lost one and stuff like that. Oh my goodness, that was a drama. But anyway, and yeah, so Show Us Your Cat will be on Sunday. I just finished editing that this afternoon, and hopefully I might even have something else for tomorrow tomorrow afternoon, another video. Depends what happens in the morning, but we shall see. So until next time, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.